And I just want you to kind of take a moment to maybe tune into that feeling, if that resonates with you, and on some level, this moment where you thought, and more than a thought, you really felt, this is it. You know, there's something in this for me, and something I want to act on. Yeah. And that's a motivating force for us to be here right now. It's definitely something that was a big thing for me, the sense of, oh yeah, there's something in this personally for me that's an invitation to act on, to change, to pursue. And I remember very clearly my first night at women's study. I think I was only 26. And Dantishita was leading that study, and some of you would have heard this story before, I think, or maybe not. But at the end of the study night, I remember someone in our study group said, I really want to connect with the Buddha. She said, you know, she just really wants to, but she couldn't. You know, she said, I just can't connect with the Buddha. And she said it in such an honest way, and it was kind of revealing, you know, but it was also, there was this kind of, this suffering in it, you know, this kind of raw suffering of being disconnected from something that you really would rather be connected with, you know. I don't know if that makes sense to you, this sense of, you know, just this longing for meaning and significance we all have, right? We have this longing, we have this yearning, we want to be connected with something that's bigger than us. We want to have meaning in our lives. And that really kind of changed something for me. When I heard that, I thought, oh yeah, this is true, the truth of suffering, you know, the truth of this kind of, this on an existential level, this disconnect that we have on this until we're enlightened, right? This alienation that we have from life, this to some level lack of intimacy from our immediate experience. And I didn't have any of these words for that then. I just felt, oh, something kind of in me just went, this was new. It was the first time I was having this experience. And then I was very moved, and I kind of walked out of the room. It was in Pitt Street then. And I think there must have been a strange look on my face, and Dantishita was like, are you okay? And I thought I was hiding it really well. So I was like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm completely fine, you know. But yeah, I wasn't. I was fine, but I was very moved, you know. It was something was happening. And I remember kind of cycling home. And I was just crying all the way home, you know, kind of like on my little pink bicycle. And, you know, as I came home, there was a full moon and there was a shooting star. And I thought, this is weird. You know, something's happening here. And I don't really know what it is, but I also know what it is. You know, when something is true, the universe responds. You know, I just feel, I don't know if you've had that experience, but it happens to me from time and time again when then something's new and then something resonates and it's the right, I'm at the right place and time. And I'm understanding something for the first time that's significant. The universe responds in a very interesting way. And I thought, okay, I need to, this is beyond me. You know, whatever's happening right now is beyond me. And it was very reassuring. In the moments like these, where the Dharma kind of comes in an unexpected way, are the moments that fuel our practice, right? These are the moments that kind of pull us forward. These are the moments where that helps us take action and do something, yep? So, but how do we follow this initial spark? What I want to talk about is, for the rest of my talk, is the times in which things get difficult, or the times in which we need to do something a bit different than our normal ways. And I kind of want to talk about this in terms of what the Dharma is. So it's going to get a bit technical a little bit for a short while, but hopefully you'll hang in there with me, and then we'll have the practical and the transcendental together, as Shraddhanaya has predicted. So we'll have this the sense of what is the Dharma. So the Dharma can be many different things. It means many different things. We use it in different ways, don't we? So the Dharma is what we practice, right? So it's doctrine. You know, things like the 5 precepts, right? We practice the Dharma. We practice the 5 precepts. We know it's the Buddha's teaching, and we know that, yep, there's skillful actions and there's unskillful actions, and we put effort in to do what's skillful. And then there's the Dharma as truth, right? So we want to understand the Dharma, we want to embody the Dharma, wisdom. There's the Dharma as wisdom. So Dharma as goal, yeah? Dharma as practice, Dharma as goal. And there's also lots of different ways in which we use the Dharma, the word Dharma. So But there are places in us in which the Dharma doesn't go yet, right? So I want to talk about two things in relationship to Dharma as practice and Dharma as goal. Around Dharma as practice, we practice the Dharma, right, to the best of our abilities, but then there's places in us in which the Dharma doesn't go yet, the light of the Dharma doesn't shine yet. And this is a phrase that I'm taking from my good friend Zoe. She used to say this. She said this about a friend of ours once, where when we were living together for 5 months on this, at Adhisthana, on this intensive course, you really get to know people in a way that I don't think I've experienced anywhere else. You live with people, you share a room, every day you're with them, you work with them. You practice with them, and of course you get to see people's blind spots, yeah, in the most helpful and useful way. And we had this friend, and and there was this one thing that she used to do, and it's just like, it was kind of excluded from her Dharma practice. And I'm using that as an example, but we all have these places in ourselves where the Dharma doesn't go, right? Because we hear these things that are wonderful, don't we? We hear hatred does not cease by hatred, hatred ceases by love, and we're like, yep, I'm totally behind that, except that colleague at work, I don't know, she's kind of exempt from this, hatred doesn't cease by love thing, Or we have these kind of views where we think we justify things, don't we? We make excuses for things, or we get offended by things. So we all have these little parts in ourselves, and sometimes not so little, where we're on board with the Dharma, but we exclude that thing, right? In that kind of area or that kind of action, that pattern is not really, doesn't let the Dharma shine through it. Yeah, and I'm going to give some examples around this to kind of make it a bit more clear. So anytime we kind of get self-righteous, right, that's probably a good sign. Or if we have a really big reaction to something, that's probably a good sign that maybe that's somewhere in there. There's like a dark corner where the Dharma hasn't gone yet, right? Or when we justify or when we defend, right, that's kind of a good sign that says, maybe you need to look into this a little bit to see, are you excluding something from the truth of the Dharma in that, what is it that you're kind of justifying? What are you defending? What are you protecting from the light of the Dharma? Yeah. And this is an overgeneralization. We're all going to have different applications of this. But I just want to put this out there as a question because it's been very helpful for me to kind of, whenever I'm like justifying something or defending or getting self-righteous, even though I'm so sure that I'm right, I got to look at that because there's probably something in there in which I'm kind of saying, well, I don't want the Dharma to go here because I don't want to change, right? Or I'm not even aware of it yet, yeah? So there's places in us where the Dharma doesn't go. And there's these places change and they're like, do you remember when the Buddha story from the Buddha's time where he was deciding whether or not he should teach? And then he had this vision of human beings as different lotuses that are like fully closed under the mud or half open or fully open, yeah? And these places in us in which the Dharma doesn't go they also have these different phases of opening, don't they? So, for example, I used to be a pescatarian, right? I used to eat fish, but I didn't eat anything else. Like I didn't eat red meat and chicken and all that kind of stuff. And fish was something that I would justify to say, oh, okay, it's okay to eat fish because blah, 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 blah. I had this lovely story to make that okay, But the more aware I became, the more I was aware of the inconsistency of what I believe to be true and my actions, right? So I feel like that lotus is opened, right? So that I feel more consistent in the way that I act on my intentions of non-harm, yeah? Of course, there's so much more I can do around non-harm, right? But that's something that I can see. All right, so there was a dark corner in my actions or in the way that I viewed things that needed a bit more of the light of the Dharma to shine, to kind of blossom, yeah? So we have these different views that over time, with more light, kind of can open up to be full lotuses, yeah? I mean, I have many more examples of this that I'm currently working on, but I won't bore you with my with my shortcomings. So I thought I was going to make a joke that I got from Shraddhanaya, which is, we all live in the postcode samsara, don't we? Which is a hotspot of delusion, And I thought that's really true, it's just how it is. Like, regardless of where we live, right now we're in samsara. I'm assuming, I don't know your attainment level, but I definitely am, right? And it is a hotspot for delusion and hatred and greed, and we have this in us, So I guess my invitation is just to be honest about it. What are the dark corners of our being in which the Dharma doesn't shine, because if we're not honest about it, we can't change it. So when we find these dark corners, we should be happy. We should be humbled and happy and overjoyed, because it's like finding a room in our house that we didn't know existed. And yeah, when the moment we see it, it's like dusty and dirty and unorganized. And it's like, what is this? Oh, inconsistency in my actions. So, when someone kind of tells us about these inconsistencies, or if we see that, actually we need to step up, our first reaction is often, I don't want to see that, right? And what can I do to kind of move away from my own, from seeing that actually change something, right? But actually, if we can move into this room that's chaotic and messy and dirty, and if we can clean it up, which we can, we'll have an extra room in our house, right? We have more space. We have more space in our life, in our house, in our being, yeah? So when we find these inconsistencies in ourselves, these things that we justify, these things that we kind of defend, we need to train ourselves to welcome it, yeah? Because that means, okay, we know where to start. We know what our work is, yeah? And our work is integration and positive emotion when it comes to that. One point about being offended, I thought this was really, really interesting. Mahavira said this on the New Year's retreat a couple of years ago. He said, being offended is unethical. So how does that land? How does that land? I think that is really interesting. And I've been reflecting on that quite a lot, actually. I cannot say I fully understand what that means, but I have a sense of that. It's about, if I'm offended about something, that's probably a red flag around, okay, so there's something in there that the light of the Dharma doesn't shine yet, right? So I'm just going to offer that as a suggestion, something that we can reflect on. Kind of when we're offended, what's that about? What is that about? And this is another suggestion I want to make is around things, views that we might have about fairness, equality, and justice. Yeah, it's a big topic, and it's one that's not very easy to talk about. But I just want to leave that there. Fairness, equality, and justice. If we have fixed views about these, it could be something that we might need to look at, right? In the light of the Dharma, what does that mean? Yeah. And I'm just going to read something from the Pali Canon, which really spoke to me when I read this the first time. And this is the Buddha having a discussion with someone called Vacha. They're talking, and Vacha says to the Buddha, I think he's asking a lot of questions, and the Buddha explains. And he says, the more we talk, the more confused I get. And, to be honest, any confidence I had in you, actually, I don't have any confidence in you anymore. That's what Vacha says. And the Buddha says, profound is this doctrine, Vacha. Hard to see, hard to comprehend. Good, excellent, beyond the sphere of reasoning. Subtle, to be understood only by the wise. For you, it is hard to understand, who hold other views, other inclinations, other likings, another training, and another master. Yeah? So the Buddha is, when we talk about right speech, he's being helpful, kindly, harmonious, right? He's kind of saying, yeah, it is hard to understand much. It is hard to understand because it's subtle. And you're not going to understand it by just thinking about it. It's not a reasoning thing, yeah? And he's also saying, you're full. You're full of views, of likings, of training, and you have another teacher. So when we come all full with our views and our likings and our training, and we can't take the Dharma in, and we're resisting and we're rejecting, we've got to look at that. We all have to look at what is our training, who is our teacher, what are our likings. I just find this very encouraging because he's also saying this is the way out, right? He's not just saying you don't understand it, it's too difficult. He's saying the reason you don't understand is you're already full, and maybe we're full too in some ways, yeah. So we need to empty out. We need to kind of see where we're, where we're stuck. Yeah. Alrighty. The second thing I want to talk about, and this is a bit shorter, is, so I talked about the places in us where the Dharma doesn't go. And there's places in the Dharma that we can't go. Yeah. This is because we need to let go of something, right? We need to learn to surrender. We need to learn to know that actually, as we are, we can't go there, right? So this is the call to the Dharma that is beyond reason, beyond rationality, yeah? So at one point, we need to really surrender and let go, and we need to be prepared to go into the unknown beyond our rational mind. I mean, I think what Michelle and Loretta are doing today, and a lot of us have done this, becoming mitras and order members, and just joining this community, we're taking a step into the unknown, right? We're saying, actually, there's something in this that's calling for me, and I could just sit around. We could have all done that, we could have just be doing something completely different today, right? But we're not. We're here because there's something that is calling. There's something that's saying, yeah, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to listen to this talk, and I'm going to engage in this puja, even if at home. We're saying, yeah, I'm ready to kind of be receptive. Yeah. And that is so important for any change to happen. We have to have that sense of, actually, I don't know, right? And I'm willing to walk into the unknown, and I'm willing to change. And I know that there are places in the Dharma that I can't go. Yeah. And that's scary. It's a scary thing to kind of say, well, the spiritual path that I'm on, the more I practice, the less I will know. It's not rationally, doesn't make much sense, right? Because we want to know. I want to know, right? But we're actually, the more we practice, the less we know. And that's a good thing. Sangraksh just says, we must accept the limits of our rational understanding. And Buddhism invites us to accept that Dharma transcends our rational understanding. It is hard, it has no mania for explanation. I think this is great. It has no mania for explanation. The Dharma is not trying to explain everything, right? I mean, this was a big thing for me because I just wanted answers early on. So what about this? And what about that? And this kind of thing about, well, maybe you need to be patient, or, there are things beyond your rational understanding, weren't very pleasant to hear, because my training was that you think about it, you understand it, okay, done, next, right? But that's not the training in the Dharma, right? So the Dharma has no mania for explanation. Yep. And what does that mean? Can we sit with uncertainty? Can we sit with not knowing? Can we sit with the chaos of life that's ever changing, And we know that if we can't, we suffer. I mean, just look at where we are now, if you kind of, for me, the more I organize my life in a way to predict how things are going to unfold, the more I suffer in this situation that we're in, with this ever-changing regulations, ever-changing work, ever-changing this and that, and plans. When do we suffer? We suffer when we want it to be a certain way, We get stressed out. We kind of, it's difficult, when we try to predict the future. And, it's a great thing, that a gift that we have right now, that we just can't, we just are so close to the fact that we don't know how it's going to turn out, yeah? So if we don't want to suffer, we just have to open up to that. So because we're so close to it, the choice that we're making is very immediate, right? It's very immediate, and we can see the choices that we're making around it, and the immediate effect of the choices that we make if they revolve around predicting the future. So we don't know. And then he says, certainty is bad for you. Spiritually speaking, whether about one's own experience or about the nature of things, there is wisdom in insecurity. Yeah? It's very difficult to sit with insecurity and doubt and chaos and all of that, but there's wisdom in insecurity. So how do we open up to that? That's the practice of knowing that in the Dhamma there are places we can't go. One thing that really helps with that is devotion and reverence. Yeah. So what did the Buddha do after his enlightenment? He was reflecting on what can he revere now? What can he revere? He's gone beyond anyone else at his time, before. He's enlightened, fully enlightened. There's nobody else who's fully enlightened. So who is he going to turn and revere? And then he says, well, I'm going to revere the Dharma. Yeah. And the Dharma, in the way that we understand it, is truth. Yeah. So that's what we need to revere, and that is our security, and that is the insecurity and security all together. That's the great paradox of the Dharma, right? The security of insecurity, knowing that we don't know. Okay, I want to leave some time for questions, but I just kind of want to summarize some of the things I said, and then we'll look for some, we'll see if there's some questions from our Zoom audience, as well as our live audience, which is very strange. Okay, so how do we shine a light into the places that the Dharma doesn't go, and how do we actually let go into the Dharma and give up our sense of self? So first thing that we need to do, or I'd like to invite you to do, is to investigate, to just really honestly investigate the places in ourselves the Dharma doesn't go. Yeah. And if we like, we can ask our friends actively. I know Dante has asked for feedback recently. We had a workshop about it last week. It's just kind of like, we can ask our friends, if we feel up for it. If we don't feel up for it, don't do it. If you feel up for it, I know from personal experience, if you feel up for it, you got to kind of check in first and say, yep, I'm ready. I really want to kind of see, can somebody help me see where is it in me the Dharma doesn't go? Yeah. And then trust that the first witness is the primary witness. That's something that's from the mind training slogan. So we need to trust ourselves. Even when we hear feedback, we have to check in with ourselves. But we need to be open to the fact that maybe there is something that I do, like a view we might have, that's probably ugly, or unpleasant to see and realize, right? But that means extra room in our house, right? So we can ask for feedback and we can investigate in ourselves these inconsistencies that we have, right? I don't know if you can think of any, but we're inconsistent some of the time. Maybe it's broad grade, maybe we still eat products for pleasure, maybe there's someone we haven't forgiven, or a family member we'd like to apologize to, or someone who comes to mind regularly and we still have grumpy thoughts about them, right? So we all have these kind of little pockets in our life where the Dharma doesn't go. So let's really kind of take a moment when we have that to say, oh, what is this? What is this? And how can I befriend this? And how can I get to know this? And let's cultivate some belief in ourselves, in our own potential that, yeah, we can change these things, right? It has to start from there, because if we have a belief that we can't change, yay, we found a place where the Dharma doesn't go, yeah? Because we can change. And if that's the view, but it works for everybody else, but it won't work for me. All right, great. Here's what we need to do then. Look at that, because it's just not true, yeah? It's just not true. Also, we need to respect the Dharma and Dharma texts and everything that comes from, this realm that's beyond us. Because respect comes with this sense of knowing that there's something we don't know, and there's mystery in respect, right? So what does that mean? That might mean that, taking care of our Dharma texts, like not just putting them on the floor or, leaving them in our, it's just like really kind of revering when we know that something's precious in whatever form it comes in, really kind of having a sense of respect for it. Yeah, that will change our lives. That will change the way that our relationship with the Dharma around us. Yeah, when we listen to Dharma talk, maybe just really listening to it from beginning to end, right? Not kind of having it in the background as background noise fillers, right? Because the Dharma is special. It's different than everything else. It's sacred. It's something we need to revere. Yeah, and we need to train ourselves. Most of us need to train ourselves to revere the Dharma in that way, because we didn't grow up in a monastery. In our culture, it's not something that we see around, right? But actually, I think as a community, we really need to train to take care of Dharma texts, of what we listen to that is Dharma, of our shrine, which is so beautifully done. Like, this makes a difference, the way that this makes a difference on how we see these sacred objects and the texts here. Yeah. So how can we do that in our life? Maybe we need to make a shrine, take care of our shrine more, or where our Dharma texts in. Yeah. And let's be happy. That's another thing that I put here, is that as Dharma practitioners, we need to be happy, right? We need to have a sense of joy and lightness in our Dharma practice. A friend of mine asked me the other day, I was very surprised. She said, oh, I'm really happy and well and you know, how do you practice when you're happy? And I thought, oh, that's just such an interesting question. Like, you just practice with more happiness, you know, but it's just, you know, she has a view that practice needs to be hard and tough, and, you know, it's just like this, you know, maybe she finds meditation difficult, or, which it is, but also it has to happen in this bigger context of happiness and joy, and it should be something that, you know, when we think about our spiritual practice, it shouldn't be a to-do list. Yeah, it should be something that we know is actually bringing us to freedom, it's making us happy, right? Happy are the followers of the Buddha, you know, and we know that. Yeah, and I just want to leave with the sense that we need to know that it's the Dharma, and what we're doing as a spiritual practice is beyond our rational thinking. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's not in our control. Very, very little is in our control. Yeah. So can we really just let go into that and trust? You know, what do we need to do to just really trust that it's going to unfold? You know, trust in karma, trust in, you know, that the step that you two are taking today, I mean, that's just going to have such skillful consequences, you know, and that's beyond you, you know, that's for everybody here, and it has cosmic significance, you know. And we need to trust that. We need to trust that our skillful actions have skillful consequences, and notice that as much as we notice the unskillful. Yeah. Because as human beings, we're very good at noticing unskillful, but also we can change, and that's just a matter of fact. It's not some sort of you know, a positive self-talk. It's just a fact. Right? So, Ema Ho, Dharma, wondrous strength, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. Here we are. Thank you for listening.